Hey guys, welcome back to PK on Tech. In this video, we are going to be looking at time intelligence functions in Power BI. If you're working on a report or a dashboard or doing some analytics where you're asked to show measurement of something in a given time window, for example, you might be asked to report sales for a month and compare that to the sales of the prior month, or or you might be asked to report a revenue for a quarter and compare with the revenue for the prior quarter, or you might be asked to show profit in a given year compared with the profit in a prior year, and change over time, percentage change over time, things of that sort. Right. So it's very common. Any basic report or dashboard will have such requirements. And Power BI makes it really simple to do such calculations compared to some of the other BI tools. So I have a basic report here which shows this is a matrix visualization I have, which shows the sales for broken down by a fiscal year, quarter, and month, and it also shows the prior year values for the same and the sales year on year percentage change. So in this video, let's take a look. Let's rebuild this from the scratch, from step by step, and I'm going to do a brand new version of this. Let's briefly take a look at the setup. I am using the AdventureWorks data for this exercise, and I have pre-created a model for that. And the model looks something like this. So I have a basic fact table, the sales fact table, and I have a date dimension that I'm using to do these calculations. And one of the things that's important to note is having a independent date dimension to facilitate these calculations. In the last video, we went through specifics of how we can create a date dim from the scratch. If you're not watched this, please do take a look. The description, the link is in the description below. So I have this sales fact. The other um, dimensions and the other tables in this are not important. We are going to be focusing on these two. So I have some measures pre-created, but I'm going to delete that and redo it so you can walk through along as we create that. So let's take a look. Let's get started. Okay, so I have deleted all the measures that I had created previously. So my sales fact is very basic now. There are no measures. So we can start fresh. So the first thing I'm going to do is launch a brand new sheet, and let's pop in a matrix visualization. And I'm going to go to my date table, date dim table, and add the fiscal year. So let's sort descending. And we want to now see the sales for this year, as we were saying previously, the sales um, breakdown by year, quarter, month, and the prior year values for those. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new measure. So in the table tools, there are a few ways to do the new measure. It really doesn't matter. When I click on this, the query, the uh, the table tools gets enabled. I'm going to click on the new measure, and the cursor moves to the focus moves to the formula bar. So I'm going to say sales. Let's just call it sales, which is the total sales, is going to be just the sum of sales amount. So this will be our sales, which we are going to use in multiple places. So that's, and I'm just going to drag it here so you can see the sales breakdown, and that's our starting point. Now I want to see the sales for the prior year. So what will happen is I need to see this 34 million number come next to this, right? So I want to see financial 2020, my sales were 51 million. I know obviously this is 34 million, but I want to see side by side. So let's create a sales prior year measure. So I'm going to add a new measure, and let's call it sales prior year. And I'm going to use the calculate function here. It takes an expression, and that expression is going to be sales. But what we want to do is we want to get the sales for the prior year. So there is a very convenient function here in DAX called same period last year. And we need to give the date. It expects the set of dates. So that's going to be my date. And this should give us the sales prior year. And it's got created. So if I drag this now, so you can see, let me collapse this. So 51 million for financial 2020 and 34 million. Obviously, that's the value here. And for 2019, we had a sales of 34 million with a prior value of 23.8 million, and that's what was there for the prior year, which is 2018. So that looks great. So I think that's the basic start. Now what I want to do is I want to do a year-on-year percentage change. So let's create a new measure and one more measure, and I can go to the new measure again here, and I'll say sales year-on-year percentage equals divide. I'm going to divide the sales with the sales prior year, and that's pretty much it. And I'm going to make this as the format as a percentage, and let's add this to our visual. So there was a 142% increase from 2018 to 2019. No, that cannot be true. There is a small typo here. What I want to do is I want to do the change in sales. So that should be the change in sales. Maybe what we can do is create a variable for the change, and that's what we'll use. So we'll come back to this, and I'm going to create a measure which is a convenience measure. So I'll say sales year-on-year change is sales minus sales prior year. That will be my change. And for the year-on-year percentage, I'm going to use this different sales year-on-year change with the divide by the sales prior year to get the actual difference. And there you go. So that makes more sense. So you have 42% increase or almost 43% increase in 2019 compared to 2018, and almost a 50% increase, 52% increase in 2020 compared to 2019. So that makes sense. And here in the 2021, we don't have any sales for the financial year 2021, but we have the prior year sales, which were 2020 sales, and that's why you see a negative 100%. So we will look at later in the video on how we can suppress this. Yeah. So next, what we are going to do is, so this was the report that I was showing earlier. You have sales broken down by year, quarter, and month, and you have the corresponding values, and you can drill down. That's pretty neat. But sometimes you want the quarter on quarter explicit measure on the month on month explicit measure. So let's take a look at how we do that, and we'll add that to a table visualization. Okay, let's now add a month prior month sales value, and let's look at the change on a month to month for the sales. So we previously did the year on year. So let's do the same for the prior month sales and the month to month change. So back to new measure in the home tab. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a sales prior month. And that is going to be, it'll be slightly different compared to the last when we saw the year on year, and you'll see quickly. So I'm going to use sales, and I'm going to use this parallel period, very handy function, and pass the date here. So date, this is our date. And I want to say the number of intervals. So in this case, I want to go back 1 month. So it is -1, and the interval itself is time. And will obviously it's going to be -1 quarter when if you want to do prior quarter, which we'll do next. So brackets, and we have our sales prior month. I realize I've put this in the home table as customer, which I want to change it to sales. Next, let's add the change, just like what we did for the year as a convenience. I'm going to create a sales month on month change. So sales MOM change, and that's going to be just a sales minus the sales prior month. And I have the sales month on month change. And finally, let's add a new measure. I'm going to click on the new measure. The sales month on month percentage is going to be a simple now the change in sales, which is this value here over the prior month sales. And I'm going to make this format a percentage. And that's it. So we have all the measures now that we want. So if I just add a simple table visualization, I'm going to use the month here just to show sorted descending. And I'm going to add sales and the prior month sales, and then finally the sales month on month percentage. So there we have it. My sales over for each month, comparing with the sales the prior month and the percentage change. So if you look at 2020 June, the sales were 3.465 million, and the prior month sales were 5.265 million, which is the sales for the month of May, and it was down almost 34%, 34.19%. So it's really convenient. So the key here is using this parallel period. It's very convenient out of the box DAX function, and you can use it for um, other intervals. So we'll do it next for the quarter. We'll revisit this how we don't want to show it. The same issue here. There are no sales for the financial year 2021. There are no sales for the month of July, but you'll still see the value of negative 100%. So we'll fix it. I'll show you how to fix that. Okay, next let's add the quarter on quarter change. And to do that, I follow the steps that we did for the month on month change. Very similar. One thing I noticed though is that I have a quarter attribute or a year attribute for the calendar date here. It's a convenience function. So I'm going to do that first. Even though I have the fiscal quarter, I'm going to show you how you can do it. How one is to add additional attributes for a dimension that already exists, and let's do that. So I'm going to edit this, and select my date column and pop over to the add column in the ribbon. And from there, in the from date time group, first let's select the year, and then let's select the month of the year. And now that we have that, we'll close it. It'll pop me to apply changes. I want to apply the changes, and it'll prompt me to, it'll load here automatically. And I should see my, it looks like I had created a month before, so I'm just going to remove this. So I have my month and year now in the date dimension. So let's add the quarter, sales prior quarter first. Go to the sales table, new measure, and sales prior quarter will be my sales. And I'm going to use the same parallel period function that we used before and pass the date. And the number of intervals will be -1, except the interval will be quarter. Next, let's add the sales quarter on quarter change. Will be my sales minus the sales for the prior quarter. And then finally, I'm going to add the sales QOQ percentage. And we're going to use the sales quarter on quarter change and divide by the number, divide by the change value, quarter on quarter change here. And I'm going to specify that as a percentage. And we have all our measures. Okay, next let's add the quarter on quarter change. It'll be very similar to the month on month change which we just did, except in the parallel period we are going to use the quarter as the interval. One thing I notice is I don't have the quarter or for that matter the year attribute in my date dimension, even though I have the fiscal equivalence of that. But I want to do it on the calendar year and quarter, and it'll be good to show you how we can quickly, very easily do it in Power BI. So edit query, and it brings you to the Power Query Editor tab. And I'm going to select the date and pop over to the add column option here in the ribbon. And here in the from date and time group, let's first add the year. And next, we are going to add, select the column again and add the quarter of the year. So it's just, let's make sure it's okay. So 2017, third quarter, that looks fine. And the fiscal quarter would obviously be 1 there. So, but the calendar quarter obviously is the third quarter. July is the third quarter. So let's close this. Apply the changes, yes, and it'll reload here. And now I should see my quarter and year. That looks good. So let's add our measures. So new measure. First, I'm going to create a sales prior quarter. Sales prior quarter equals calculate. And expression will be the sales value measure. And I'm going to call parallel period, which we saw before, and as the date from the date, our date dimension, and -1, number of intervals, we want to go back 1 interval, and the interval itself is the quarter, brackets, and I get the close, the sales prior quarter. Let's add the change value, which is, don't need to do it, but it's a good idea. So sales quarter on quarter change will be a simple subtraction, sales minus the sales prior quarter. And once we have that, finally the sales quarter on quarter percentage change. So Q on Q percentage will be divide sales quarter on quarter change with divided by the sales for the prior quarter. And we are going to change that format to a percentage. Okay, we have everything now. So let's add a table. Let's drag it here so you can see it. And I'm going to add first the year. It'll show all the years, and then I'm going to show the quarter. It'll show all the quarters. Let's sort this descending. And we just have the first two quarters of 2021, all the four quarters. So first I'm going to add the sales, and it'll show the breakdown of the sales. And next I'm going to add the sales for the prior quarter. And that looks fine. So for 2020 quarter one, I have 11 million, and the prior quarter for 2021 Q1 would be the 2019 fourth quarter. That should be 13. Yeah, that checks fine. That looks fine. So let's take one more look. So 2020 Q2 would be 12 million, 12.733, and the prior one will be the Q1, which is this value here. So that looks good. Let's add the percentage change here. And again, we have this problem, which we are going to look next, but that all looks fine. So I have in 2020 Q1 a 13% drop, increase of 8% in 2020 Q2. Really convenient. Obviously, in a real life visualization, you're probably going to be having one consolidated dashboard or a chart. This is just for demonstrative purposes. So that was a quick walkthrough of the quarter on quarter change. So what we have done is covered the year on year, month on month, and now the quarter on quarter. Now, let's revisit this and see when you do not have a number for a period, for in this case, a month or a year or a quarter, how do you suppress it? Okay, now let's fix this issue with showing an empty value here when there are no sales for the year 2021. However, the year 2020, there were sales. So let's fix that. So that's simple to do. So I'm going to add an if condition here, and that condition is going to say if is blank my sales, then I'm going to return blank, else this value. So let's close this parenthesis, and that fixes that value. So that's gone. I'm going to do the same for the sales prior month. So here, so let's add an if condition. If sales is blank, sorry, if is blank sales, then I'm going to return blank, else return the difference. And that should fix this value here. And it does. And then finally, let's do the same for the quarter. So I'm going to go to the sales change. Now the prior year sales, prior quarter, yeah, right here. So if is blank sales, then return blank, else return this value, and that should take care of this quarter, blank quarter, and that looks good. I'm okay with showing the value for the sales when there are no prior sales, because that's fine. There is, you still want to see the sales. I think that should do it for this video. Hopefully that was helpful. If you like it, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you.